Alrighty. So we'll go ahead and begin in just a minute, but I'll leave it like a brief, like 1 minute meditation. So just straighten up. Push the crown of the head up towards the ceiling. And just notice how everything settles. And if possible, notice how that settling is happening within open awareness. So it's like think of your whole experience all as awareness, like the ocean. And then any particular event that happens is like a wave. Wave is not separate from the ocean, so it's not separate from this awakened awareness. It appears to arise and it appears to pass away. But it's not separate. Okay, good. All right, hey, good to see you all. Zilka, Kurt, Julian, John, Alan, and good to see you, Lisette. Thanks for the reminder email. Okay, cool. So what I thought to do is to talk about next, or rather the past week of practice. I'm curious to know how that went for you, what you thought of the practice techniques, if there were any issues, etc. Then we'll get into the new material. Yeah, and then guidance, and then question and answer opportunities throughout the talk. So, yep, how did it go last week? So we did essence noting. What was your experience with that? Any questions or reports?
So, I sent you an email on Sunday afternoon last week on, this is great stuff.
Yeah.
So I found that my ability to get into essence noting almost at any time just happened spontaneously. And it's been a great week to not only consciously cause myself to be in that state, but it's just kind of appeared often. So probably it's been the most powerful meditation for me so far. And I've taught it. I introduced it to a number of people this week just to say, just to see how they reacted to it. And I haven't had a lot of time to work with them on it, but again, I just feel it's such an incredibly powerful meditation. And this is where I've been moving my life to anyway, is to be able to create that beingness where I can be in that, that positive state and appreciation rather than being carried by the other stuff that sometimes comes through. So just love it. Thank you, man.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Great report. And then, let me say that we've introduced a lot of different techniques. So what I'd recommend is, there'll be one or two that really stand out. So just go with those, after the course is done. Any other reports?
Hi, Cedric.
Yeah, go ahead, Leon.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to tell you I'm still trying to get some practice with see, hear, feel thing. I started with all this journey recently, so currently I'm in this part of the journey where your initial enthusiasm fades away. So you have to push through, which is really hard but doable. So I'm currently a little bit behind on trying other
No
things.
problem.
I just want to push through this period and I don't know, maybe that's whatever, but master this see here field thing, and then I'll explore the other kinds of meditation.
Yeah, that's fine, and it's good to pace yourself.
And that's why I didn't have any reports for the last few weeks, because I was kind of still working on that one.
No
Thanks
problem.
anyway.
Yeah, sure. Good report, Alan. Yep, that's fine.
Hey, Cedric.
Hey.
Hey, so I'll just say, Essence Knowing, I think, worked really well for me on Sunday, but since then it's been really difficult for me.
Okay.
And I feel myself experiencing like boredom, I guess, perhaps. So I'm more inclined to do some of the other ones that I've been working on instead. But I do want to get back into it. Maybe have to push through it, like Alan said.
Yeah, well, I like essence noting. It seems to be a really good practice, but then different practices will have a different resonance at a certain point, and then also constantly changing practices, like changing practices at the rate that I'm introducing them in this course is probably not generally a good idea. It's just kind of like a course to like get the practices introduced, you see what resonate, and then you just keep going with the ones that work. I would largely recommend kind of having an insight practice going. So that would be like see, hear, feel, or like essence noting, and then have a heart practice going at the same time. And as long as you have one of the two, then that's generally speaking sufficient. That's
excellent.
That's how I view it. All right, cool. Yeah, any other reports? Okay. Sounds like not. Okay, very good. We'll get into the new material today. So today we're going to be talking about trigger practice and like how to kind of deepen your practice and how to kind of integrate it into your life, how to really bring what you learn on the cushion and bring it into your life to really get the benefits. So, okay, great. Let me go over to my notes. So, okay, there's this idea of, and this is coming from Unified Mindfulness from Shinzen Young, which incidentally, I will be covering the same material towards the end of the 8-week mindfulness class. Unified Mindfulness class on Shinzen Young's material, which I'll be offering. And then probably most of you already signed up for it, but let me put the link in the chat. So this same material will get covered in about 2 months in that course as well. All right, great. So opportunities and obstacles. This is kind of an interesting way to just think about the practice. I mean, I think good practice is where you take everything and you roll it into the practice, right? Like when things are quiet, you're on a walk, you're walking your dog, you notice, oh, you know what? I can actually do a meditation practice right now. So maybe you do see, hear, feel, or maybe you do metta or essence noting, whatever. Also, there are obstacles that come up, right? Like inattention, inability to focus, the feeling of overwhelm. So what we do is we take the skills that we've learned in this course and we apply them to that situation. So one of the main skills of meditation is equanimity. So when we get hit with obstacles in life, that's an opportunity to practice equanimity. And I've already talked about equanimity, but I can reiterate it. So equanimity is to not fight with life. It's to accept things as they are. One way that I recommend people to think about it is that it is surrender to the moment. So let's just say you're meditating and you cannot concentrate worth a damn. And the meditation is very irritating. So one possibility is just trying to allow yourself to settle into the moment and settle into the discomfort. And in a sense, situations like those are very special and rare opportunities because outside of meditation, it's outside of formal meditation, it's often very easy to distract ourselves, to ignore the problem. But there's this quality of meditation where your experience is right up in your face. And so so situations like this, it's an opportunity to practice equanimity, surrender, allowing that things just be as they are. But let me back up and say that equanimity does not mean resignation. It doesn't mean that you don't do anything in your life. The difference here is the difference between taking action, being proactive, going after what you want, what you think is a benefit to yourself and others, versus that's what you should do. You should take the action. But also, what doesn't make any sense is resisting the sensory experience. Like there's no profit in like pushing it away. Rather, you totally surrender to the sensory experience, but that still means you take affirmative action in the world. So I just want to clarify that. Okay, good. So another aspect of how to, so what I'd like to talk about right now is turn towards or turn away. And actually, this is a mentalization skill. Mentalization is basically the ability to work with your own mind as a mind and kind of interface with the minds of others as minds, as separate minds. So in terms of working with your own mind, it is a completely legitimate decision to either turn towards something or intentionally turning away from it. Like I'm sure we've all been in situations where we got really stressed, and if we were to actually look at the stress and deal with the suffering at that moment, then we couldn't do our job, right? So maybe your boss said something that's very triggering to you, and maybe it's bringing up stuff from childhood or bringing up something from your relationship, your primary relationship. And you know that if you were to actually bring your attention to it right then and there, maybe you'd start crying, and that would not be consistent with your coworkers respecting you and you're being able to do your job. So in moments like that, it's totally legitimate to just turn away from that kind of material and make the intention to stay with the situation with your boss in a more kind of businessy type way. But then there are other times that turning towards what's upsetting, turning towards what is difficult is actually the smartest and most skillful thing to do. And so in meditation, let's just say we're sitting there, and let's go back to the example of there's a kind of stress and a anxiousness, like a restlessness in the meditation. Often, if we can just kind of ignore that, put it in the background and kind of background equanimize that experience, and then keep focusing on, let's say, the sensations of the breath, if we're doing breath meditation, that's good. However, there are times where you know that the restlessness or the difficult experience is so strong that you need to turn towards it. Well, then you give yourself permission to totally look at your experience of difficulty and just be with that entirely. So that's this turn towards versus turn away options that we have. Okay, good. Something else I wanted to talk about are accelerators to your practice, how to really accelerate your practice and speed up your growth. So firstly, let me say that even we've really not covered walking meditation in depth in this class, which is kind of a shame. In retrospect, I wish that we had done one full class on walking meditation. But let me just say that you can do walking meditation with see, hear, feel, or with essence noting. See, hear, feel would be the kind of go-to option. So, for example, you can do formal seated see, hear, feel, or formal walking see, hear, feel meditation. So we often get in a state of concentration, of absorption when we meditate, right? So one way to kind of accelerate your practice is do your formal seated meditation and then get up and then go do 10 minutes of walking meditation and try to hold your same level of absorption. And I just want to make sure, is that clear? Does everybody know what I'm talking about here? Okay, just that you can do, it's a challenge to be able to do your meditation in movement instead of just seated and in stillness. Okay, good. And that kind of makes your meditation more roadworthy, right? You're bringing it out in the world and figuring out how to like massage it into your day. Good. Also, there is duration challenge. So you can, something that is very advisable if you're willing to do it is, let's say you generally sit for 30 minutes. Well, try sitting for an hour. Try doing formal meditation for 1 hour straight and try to minimize physical movement. That tends to be irritating in a certain way. But when you work through that, things start deepening. You go deeper with the practice by holding still for longer periods of time. Okay, good. So now for the rest of the class, we're going to talk about, in a sense, a subset of the accelerators, which are trigger practice. So this is how to practice when we're triggered and when we kind of have a difficulty in life. Okay, good. So what I'd like for us to do is just take a minute and write down 5 to 10 issues in your life that you find triggering. Okay, so we're gonna do that now. You know, they can be like things like difficult relationship with my girlfriend, insecurity at work. I don't like lack of certainty about the future, job insecurity, money problems. It can also be things like difficulty with romantic relationships, low self-esteem, whatever it is.
Hi, sorry, just I have to ask a very basic question.
Yep.
It's basically what exactly is a trigger? I hear this term being used all the time in American media and material, but I never seen any definition of it.
Sure. Well, what's your native language, Alan?
Okay, my native language is Croatian.
Croatian. Well, okay, okay. So I don't speak any Croatian at all.
You can explain it in English. Just
Sure.
imagine that you are speaking to a 5-year-old or a golden retriever or something.
Okay, all right. So a trigger is like something that creates a strong emotion in you. So technically, the term is technically neutral. Like if you see a smiling baby, that would trigger joy in you, trigger bliss. But also if you see somebody insulting you, right, that would also trigger, let's say, negative feelings. So it's just something that brings about, it sparks. Does that make sense?
Okay, so trigger is an emotional trigger, something which causes certain emotion to pop up, no matter if it's good or bad or whatever.
Yeah, it causes a strong emotional response. And here we're going to be focusing on negative negative reactions. So for example, let's just say if you think about your boss and you think he's been mistreating you, that would be triggering. Or if you think about, like, lots of people have job insecurity with what's going on in the world, right? Or many people find all this protesting and rioting very triggering for lots of different reasons. So they that could be triggering. Okay, so all right, just so write down a list of maybe 5 to 10 things that you find triggering. Okay. You know, anything that brings a strong reaction, even like loneliness or sadness, just that in and of itself. Okay, good. So what we're going to do, I think we're going to do 2, possibly 3 different meditations. And these are just meditations that you can do formally, but you can also do them in daily life as like micro hits. So the first one we're going to do is more of a Vipassana type meditation practice. So it's more oriented towards insight. And what we're going to really do is see the fabricated and codependently arising nature of our experience, and that it's all just sensory experience. And then when we get this insight of like, oh my God, everything's just sensory experience, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you can just really settle in because everything's actually empty and has no independent existence. And so that's what we're going to be looking at in this trigger practice. Okay, great. So straighten up, push the crown of the head up towards the ceiling. And just start settling in. And just notice how everything's settling, whether you want it to or not. It's just settling on its own. Notice how there's relaxation arising on its own. Or even this might be stressful and triggering for you to meditate. And that's arising on its own. And it's all arising in open, spacious awareness. There's so much spaciousness, so much ease. And just to get into the state a little bit further, let's do our chanting. So we're just going to chant Om 3 times. All right, so inhale, the hands to heart center. Om. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Okay, good. Okay, so straightening back up. The meditation we're going to do is very similar to see, hear, feel. Okay, now think of something that you're stressed about, a situation, something you find triggering. And now notice how an image thought arises. So just notice the image thought in your mind. And now notice how when the image thought arises, there's probably some kind of body reaction, some kind of increase in body tension. Maybe you feel a little sick to the stomach, or maybe there's tension across the back, some sort of contraction. And now just notice that as it is. And you can also note feel. That helps you stay on the object. Okay, now go back to the event or the story that you find triggering and say something to yourself silently about it. And then now notice how that's just an auditory thought. And now come back to the triggering event and notice how there are image thoughts arising. All they are is just image thoughts. And now go back to the event. Go back to the thing that you find triggering. And now just check in with the feelings. I'm sorry, with the emotions, to be clear. So emotional type feelings. And they're just emotions. That's it. And now go back to either that triggering event or another one. Just come into the trigger, come into the event, and now just notice the body tension. When you think of the event, there's likely body tension that arises. And now check in and see if you can identify emotions that are arising, like sadness, grief, joy, bliss, irritation, a sense of being lost, hopelessness. Okay, good. Now come back to the triggering thought. And now again, let's just look at the image thoughts. And concentrate so much on the image thoughts that everything else drops away. And now go back to your triggering event and say some words about about the triggering event or the triggering thought. So those will be internal auditory thoughts. And just notice them as an auditory thought. You can note here or here in. And now let's go on to another triggering issue in your life. And then now let your attention float freely, but notice clearly what's most prominent. Is it body tension, an emotional feeling, an image thought, an auditory thought? And just have clarity on that. Okay, good. Now let's actually take a break and discuss this for a minute. And then you might do this practice a little bit more. And then also there's another practice for dealing with triggers and emotional material. So how did that go for people? I tell you what, while people are gathering their thoughts, let me make a few more comments about the practice. So what we're doing here is we're kind of taking a divide and conquer strategy. So we're actually examining our experience in a very vipassana or very insight way, where we're just seeing how everything is just a series of activations, just a series of perceptual activations. Like sometimes you have a bunch of tension across the chest. Other times you have an image thought. Other times you have an emotion. And if you just have one, like just the emotion or just the image thought, it's not that big a deal. And it seems kind of dreamlike, like a dream. And it's very easy to deal with it. Whereas when they cross multiply, right? When it's emotion, image thought, auditory thought, body tension, all firing all at once, and you have no sensory clarity as to what's happening, it's totally overwhelming, right? And so, so anyway, the point is that what we're doing here is we're just looking at one at a time, seeing how they actually arise kind of in concert on some level, but also somewhat independently. And when that happens, then it starts kind of calming the whole system down, and we have insight into the kind of fabricated and codependently arisen nature of experience. Okay.
I would like to say something about the experience. So yes, it's codependent. You see, it's fabricated. Eventually, you can think that in the framework of your society, etc., and all the story in which you are involved, it's legitimate to have this trigger and to have this reaction.
Sure.
That's another question. But what I wanted to say is that when you're taking a little bit of distance and you see all the links between the thoughts, there is also something that you can focus on, which is how do I actually feel right now?
Yeah.
Because there is all this shit in front of me that I see connected, etc. But really, actually, how do I really feel? If I just don't pay attention to that, how do I really feel? And usually you can see that you feel quite good. Okay, in fact,
No.
if there is all, if you don't see all that, you just in fact, if you don't put your nose in this fabrication, in this story, you actually feel quite good.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But then you go back to it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like
yeah,
it's like okay. In fact, I'm good, and
yeah.
you're diving again.
Right. Yeah, that's an insight. Totally. Yep. You know, interestingly, they've done this research where they'll ask people in the United States that, like, let's say, support one presidential candidate. They're like, if your presidential candidate loses, how much less happy do you expect to be? And they say, oh, I'll be so unhappy. Like 6 months from now, I'll be much less happy. And then they follow up with the people 6 months later, and then they have them rate their happiness, and they're just as happy as they were had their, it doesn't matter. So it's just like you're saying, Julian, is like we get caught up in our thoughts. We think this is like this really good reason to be miserable. But if you just notice how you actually feel, you might not feel that miserable. Very good. And then I'll just make one more comment on this, that at least in Buddhism, the whole thing is, it's about like letting go of fixed view. So we're not trying to view things from one particular view. Rather, we're trying to open up to seeing it from multiple views and to be kind of gentler and easier going with our views. So one view that might be implicit in doing this meditation is, oh, my experience is not real. It's just sensory phenomenon. Who cares? It's all empty, whatever. No, that's wrong. That would be a fixed view. To occasionally come into the view of, oh, look, it's all just fabricated. It's just arising and passing. It's just image thoughts, auditory thoughts, emotions and body tension mixed up together for a moment and falling away. That is a skillful view, but you don't want to get caught in that either. Sometimes the actual skillful thing to do is to really take it very serious and deal with your emotional life, deal with what's coming up in your life. So I just don't want anybody to fall into this kind of depersonalization trap that can sometimes happen for meditation. It's like seeing it as all impersonal and just arising and passing is great, but don't get trapped in it. Sometimes you need to take a very personal view and really be concerned with your life and how things are going and tend to it. I just want to say that. Any other questions or comments coming up from that practice? How was it for people?
So I'll just thank you for that clarity that you just said, because I could feel myself maybe trying to get in that trap a little bit in that little meditation exercise. So
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, sure. No problem, John. Yeah, so I'll just say this is like going forward, put this way of meditating into your toolbox, right? This is basically a see, hear, feel technique, but you're just applying it to sensory phenomena that come up where you get triggered. So, and Shinzen Young talks about working on the skills of concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity. So, just bring those qualities to the experience of being triggered. Like, try to focus on what's triggering you. That's concentration. Sensory clarity is really understand what's happening. It's like, oh, here's really strong emotional triggering in my chest, and just know what's happening. Have a clarity about that. And then the third is equanimity. So when you do this practice, see how you could get carried away, and see if you can prevent the being carried away and just stay present with what is. Okay, good. So that's practice one. We're done with that. The next practice is called an attunement. It's an attunement meditation. And in a sense, this is like kind of opposite of what we just did. What we did is kind of very de-reifying and very kind of weird and like not in like very impersonal. But now in this meditation that I'm going to teach you, it's all very personal. And we're going to work on kind of healing ourselves, especially our attachment conditioning, through this following meditation. So, okay, we've all got our list of triggers And so now we're going to straighten up, push the crown of the head up towards the ceiling, start settling in. And now think back to a moment where you felt tremendous personal connection with someone else, where you felt really loved, really understood. Where you felt that you could really be your authentic self. And so get that moment very clear in your mind. Again, where you felt really loved, really attuned with. So go back to that time and look this person in the eyes, and they're looking at you. Now notice how good you feel, how settled you are. Notice this feeling of having love towards this other person. And feeling loved. So it's like mudita, you delight in them, and you know that they delight in you. And again, you feel like you can totally rest, totally let your guard down, and be totally authentic. And you feel totally seen. Your attuned person sees you for who you are and totally accepts you. You're feeling it in the body. You're hearing it as well. Maybe your friend or your parent or your lover or whoever it is saying something nice to you. Like, oh, it's good to see you, friend. And then you're also seeing it. So you're seeing this quality of love and attunement in your attuned person's eyes. You're noticing it in the whole visual scene. Like everything echoes this love and attunement. And maybe they reach over and touch you in a way that's very supportive, just in a way that's ideally suited just to you. So maybe they reach over and touch you on the shoulder, touch you on the arm, give you a hug, maybe touch you on the hand, or maybe they don't touch you at all, whatever you want. And now here in a moment, we're going to look down on a magazine that's on the ground, and it will have a representation of your issue. And what you want to do is just simply touch the issue or touch the thing that triggered you on a cerebral level. So you're going to simply recognize what the issue is, and then you're going to drop the feelings and then come right back to your moment of attunement. So okay, now you look down on the ground to your right. There's a magazine and it's in black and white, and there's a cartoon character that represents you, and you're having the preoccupied thought, the anxious thought about what you find triggering. Okay, good. Now you come right back to your moment of attunement. to your attuned person, and they're looking you in the eyes, and you're feeling all this love and support. Maybe they reach over and touch you in a way that's very supportive. And it feels so good. So you see this quality of love, attunement, support, soothing in the whole scene. You see it in their eyes, and you also hear it. Maybe there are words being said, or maybe there's just a beautiful white noise, a sub-audible white noise pervading the scene. And then you feel this love and acceptance and attunement in the body. Okay, good. And now we're going to look down on the ground over to our right. There's a magazine that's in black and white. And there's a cartoon character that represents you. And this cartoon character is thinking about the thing that triggers you, the next trigger, the thing that upsets you. Okay, now you drop that completely, and then you go back to your attuned moment. And your attuned person is looking into your eyes. And there's this salient experience of love. Of attunement, of ease. You can see it in their eyes. You can see the love and the attunement, the ability to be authentic. You can hear it, and you can feel it in the body. And also there's a recognition that, aha, this is what I want. To be at ease, to feel loved, and to feel love. Again, there's just so much ease and settledness. Very importantly, you feel totally understood, that you can be your total authentic self, and that you're loved for just that. Okay, now look down to your right. There's a magazine, and it's in kind of grayscale, black and white. There's a cartoon character that represents you. And that cartoon character is thinking about the thing that you find triggering. Okay, good. So you've got that in mind. And now drop it completely and then go back over to your attuned moment and your attuned person. Notice the connection, the ease, the sense of relaxation due to you know that you can totally relax and be yourself. Totally relax into this because you feel loved, accepted, attuned to, understood. Now you can see this. So you can see this kind, marked mirroring in the other person's eyes, in their face. And you know that you're understood and that they love you. You can feel it in the body. You can feel the settledness, the ease, the restfulness, and you can even hear it. Everything reinforces this love, acceptance, attunement, support, safety, security. And now you look down on the ground and there's a magazine. It's in black and white. And there's a cartoon character that represents you. And this cartoon character is thinking about one of the things that you find triggering. So you think about your trigger. And then you come back to your attuned moment. And you're instantly soothed and attuned with your beloved person, attunes with you perfectly, knowing your mind, accepting you completely and unconditionally. And then you notice the relaxation, the ease. How well you feel. You can see this in the other person's eyes as they're looking into your eyes. You can feel it, this love and attunement, soothing, acceptance, safety, security, as they reach over and touch you in a way that's very supportive. Maybe they touch you on the hand, the arm, the shoulder. And you feel so supported and at such great ease. Again, you can see this love in the visual scene. You can hear it. And you can feel it. And now again, we're going to look down on the ground at a magazine that's in black and white, and you see a cartoon character. And it has the same issue that you have, the same trigger point, the same thing that upsets you. So you just know this mentally, and then come back into the moment of attunement with your attuned person, and they're looking at you, they're attuning to you, so they know your mind. And if you're a little bit upset about what you just saw, about the triggering event, they know you deeply. They know that you're triggered, and they attune to that perfectly. And then you notice how good you feel when you feel attuned to. When you feel soothed by your attuned person. You notice it on the level of see, hear, and feel. You can see it in your attuned person's eyes, in the scene. You can hear it. Maybe there's a sub-audible, pleasant white noise, a nada sound. And you most certainly feel it in the body. Maybe they reach over and hug you. And you feel all this love, all this ease, all this wellness. And now, for one more time, we're going to look down on the magazine and see a black and white figure representing yourself, and they're thinking about the thing that you find so triggering. Okay, now let that go completely and come back to the attuned moment. And you notice how good you feel. You're looking at your attuned person's eyes. They're looking at you. There's such ease, such bliss, such relaxation. And you relax because you know that you're understood and that you can be authentic. Good, so we're going to start wrapping up the meditation. So get a real clear sense of how you feel. And notice how you created this entirely with your mind. This was created through a meditation. And you can always come back to this. No problem. If you just intend the mind in this way, take a few minutes, you can come back to this. And this really helps working through our problems and putting ourselves at ease. So you can now notice how in a minute from now, you'll still feel this ease, still feel this love, this attunement. And an hour from now, you'll still feel this ease, this attunement, this love. And you'll feel well. In a day from now, you'll feel this same love, the same attunement. in a year from now, in 10 years from now, in 100 years from now, you'll still feel the same attunement, love, ease, ability to rest into the moment. Okay, good. So may this practice work through us in such a way that others benefit as well. How did that go?
Thank you so much, Cedric. It's really amazing experience. I find it very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Very, very beautiful. I could really see a progress because at the beginning I still felt this trigger. And the more often we went down to the magazine and back to this beautiful moment, the less powerful it got.
Yeah.
So when we got down the last time, I could even smile at it.
Yeah.
It was very nice. And it supports me so much in my personal process to cultivate my self-love.
Yeah.
And it showed me when I went down to the trigger first and could go back to this beautiful moment, this person in front of me accepting me with everything which is present. That helped a lot to embrace myself more and not to judge myself so much in a negative way. Oh, this trigger came up again, I shouldn't do this.
Yeah, right.
And then I don't feel good. But it helps me a lot to embrace myself more with everything which is here. And it helps me a lot in my process to cultivate the self-love and the self-value, if you say this in English, I don't know.
Yeah. Self-worth. Self-worth.
Okay, yeah. It's really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure. My pleasure.
It helps me a lot to to work on triggers in a positive way.
Sure. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you can do this practice whenever. And actually, let me pull up my YouTube account. I actually have this saved. I'm sorry. I already have a very brief version of this meditation on YouTube already, so I'll send it out right now. Hold up. Let's see here. Darn, give me a minute. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay. All right. So if you want guidance on it, that YouTube the link that I just put in there, but it's only like about 5 minutes long. So this one was maybe 15 minutes. So this will be out within the week. I'm gonna get a little bit better about posting the videos more quickly. But yeah, okay. Any other reports? How did that go for people? And any questions as to how to do this? Because I would actually really strongly advise, like of the two practices, I think the second one is more powerful, but I'd actually recommend practicing the second one more. So, over the week, just sit with your, write down your problems and then do the attunement meditation, soothing yourself. Okay, looks like no more questions. All right, actually, I have a third meditation that I'd like to teach you guys. And this has to do with actually mentalization and like managing yourself and managing like following through and accomplishing things that are important for you. It's extremely, extremely practical. Okay, let me explain what we're going to do first. So what we're going to do is we're going to think of a task that we struggle with, that we have poor follow through on. The task can even be meditation. So why don't we write down a few, like 1 or 2 tasks that we struggle with doing, or like filling out like an application to something or something like that, right? Okay, and then simply what we're going to do is we're going to, in a formal meditation, imagine that we accomplish it. That's it. And then we're going to feel all the sense of accomplishment, feel all the good feelings. Also, we're going to see how we'll occasionally fall off the wagon, get distracted. Then we notice how we pick ourselves back up and then go back to the task. We'll notice how we get irritated, right? And then we'll notice how we deal with the irritation, letting it go, and then coming right back to the task. And then we're going to notice the tremendous sense of accomplishment that we have by doing the task. Okay, any questions about this? I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. Okay, let's assume not. All right, so let's straighten up. Push the crown of the head up towards the ceiling. And then notice how everything settles in. And how well you feel. The total ease, the total release, the settling. Okay, good. Now, think of a task that you struggle to complete, or maybe one that you've been putting off. Okay, so you have your task in mind. And so now think of your task and see yourself starting on your task. And smile because you know it's going well. Smile due to the sense of accomplishment. There's like this dopamine release because you get this sense of like, yes, I'm doing it. I'm getting it done. This is great. So you see it happening. You're so pleased. Maybe if the task is meditation, you see yourself meditating. If the task is working on paperwork, or computer work, you see yourself at your desk working on the computer or working on paperwork. If it's, tilling your garden, you see yourself out there tilling the garden. And then now notice that there's a distraction. So you're now off task and you're distracted. And then notice how you're okay with that. You're not harsh with yourself. You're like, oh, I'm off task. I'll just get right back on task. No big deal. And then you just drop your distracted activity and then you get right back to doing your task. And there's all this happiness, this sense of accomplishment. Aha, I'm getting done what I wanted to do. And you're really pleased. And now you notice how you're frustrated with your task. You've hit a point where you don't know what to do and you're confused. And now notice the confusion of the mind. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm confused, not a problem. And then by noticing that you were confused, you already become less confused. And now you see yourself doing a kind of skillful intervention to help mediate or help correct the thing that distracted you. that you found frustrating, not distracted, but rather that you found frustrating and confusing. Maybe you have to go do a Google search as to how to do the thing better, take the corrective action. And then you notice that you get your little mini problem solved and that you go back to doing your task. And then immediately you have this sense of bliss, sense of accomplishment. You're so happy. Look at me. I'm finally getting around to doing this. I'm so happy. I've been wanting to do this for a while. And then it's going well. It's going well. You have this great sense of accomplishment. You're either filling out your form, doing your application, doing your computer work, or doing your meditation, or tilling your garden, whatever the task is. And it's going really well. And then you get distracted again. You notice that you're distracted. You let it go, and then you get right back to doing your task. And it's going well. And again, you just have this tremendous sense of accomplishment. Wow, I'm really getting ahead. This is great. I'm so happy I got around to doing this. And then you get confused. You don't know the next step. You notice your own confusion of the mind. By noticing the confusion in the mind, there's thereby less confusion because there's self-awareness. And then you go and you do whatever you need to do to get the information or get the help that you need to take the next step. Maybe you call a friend. Maybe you do the attunement meditation. So you soothe yourself. Maybe you do a Google search. Then you get it dealt with, and then you go back to doing your task. And wow, you notice it's going really, really well. And you have this tremendous sense of accomplishment. And then now you notice that you're putting the finishing touches on your task. And wow, you have such a sense of accomplishment. And now you're done. And you really feel free and light. You feel like, okay, I can take it easy and relax and enjoy myself. I've accomplished so much. And then really soak in this feeling of delight around your sense of accomplishment. So wonderful. So happy I did this. Okay, good. So we'll come out of the meditation. How did that go for people? Any comments or questions?
I think this is also a very nice practice. And I feel very good to have accomplished the task in my thoughts now.
Right. Sure. Well, I can go ahead and contextualize this a bit more. So, if we don't want to do things because we were confused and we don't kind of know how it's going to go, how it's going to get figured out, and then we have doubts, and we also don't appreciate how good we'll feel once we get it done. So in this meditation, we focus on the actual good feelings of accomplishment, so that it comes up more strongly when we do the task. And to be clear, when you're doing the task, you can intentionally feel the sense of accomplishment, feel the dopamine release. I was like, oh, I'm getting this done, and really celebrate the victory, which is very important. And then also, when you do this meditation, you can see yourself dealing with the challenges. And in the meditation, it's very easy to deal with the challenges. Oh, you got confused. Oh, I had to do a Google search. You did the Google search. You fixed the problem. Boom, everything's fine. And then so you're kind of mapping out what it would look like in real life, because it's that easy to, it's that easy to fix things. Or, you imagine yourself calling your friend, hey, how do I do this? Can you help me? And then, they say, of course, yeah, here, this is how you do it. And then it's easier to implement when you can visualize it all happening. So, yeah, and the point was that all three of these meditations are very useful for everyday life. So, and there'll be more time for questions, but this is the homework assignment. So keep doing your 6 acts of generosity a day. Keep doing 30 minutes of formal practice. I would recommend doing one or all 3 of these as a formal practice. But then very importantly, do these 3 meditations as micro hits during the day. At least 6 micro hits every day. Okay. What other questions or issues are coming up? Alrighty, good enough. If nobody has anything else, we can just start wrapping it up. Alrighty, okay. Oh yeah, okay. Kurt, you got something? Go ahead.
I always do, yeah. So the last 2 exercises felt to me like anchoring exercises.
Yeah.
So that I was creating certainly the that loving, embracing moment, a really deep feeling, emotion moment that I can then anchor and then go back to often. Very powerful as far as visualization and embedding that into my awareness and feeling. And this last one was also similar, just anchoring to the success. So I can find those to be really good micro hits as well as going into more depth.
Excellent. Yep. Well, all righty, y'all. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. So, all right, we will see all of you in a week.
Thank you very much, Cedric.
Sure. Thank you, Zilka. Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Alan. Okay, all right. See you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Sure. Thank you, John. Bye-bye.